The risk was always obvious as hundreds gathered in close quarters to protest on the streets of Melbourne. Being infected with COVID was a risk that some were obviously willing to take, and yesterday saw a fourth day of demonstrations. One person who attended was so sick with COVID they were taken to hospital just hours after attending. It's not known how old this person is or if they are even vaccinated, but given the rally was largely an anti-mandate rally, it is unlikely. So now Victoria is looking at a possible super spreading event, and that's after today's 733 new cases being recorded overnight after a record 766 just yesterday. Now this fifth day of protest is almost upon us. Let's go live now to Julia Bradley. She is at CFMEU headquarters. Julia, good to see you. Police already in big numbers on the ground.
They're out in force this morning, Laura. One of the biggest really presence of police that I've seen during my last 5 days of covering these protests here in Melbourne. You can see there are about 4 busloads of police officers. A lot of other police cars are waiting. They're essentially expecting more protests today on the fifth day of demonstrations. There's been plenty of chatter online this morning which has officers worried, that suggests that they could be beginning their demonstrations at the intersection of Elizabeth and Bourke Street, but they could then descend on Treasury Gardens come midday, according to some of that online chatter. Police, I can tell you, are taking this very seriously this morning. Just as I made my way here with my cameraman, we were stopped. I was asked to show my work ID and prove that I had a reason to be here. So they are really checking everyone who comes into this area, and also anyone who's looking suspicious throughout the rest of Melbourne's CBD. We also, of course, as you mentioned, Laura, heard those concerns overnight that the protests on Wednesday at the Shrine of Remembrance could in fact turn into a super spreader event. That's after a protester tested positive for COVID-19, and they're also in fact in hospital with COVID. We are really hearing from Victoria Health at the moment that those protesters should really come forward and get a test, but of course there's a fear that they might not do so, given that that was an anti-vaccination rally. Also, we heard Victoria's Premier yesterday condemn the actions of a few protesters on Wednesday who thought it was appropriate to target healthcare workers on their way to work. We heard reports of some people being verbally and physically abused on their way to work, and as a result, 2 of our major vaccination hubs here in Melbourne have been closed, and they'll be closed until Monday, until it's deemed safe for them to reopen. In the meantime, all the staff at Co-Health who work at those vaccination centres are being told not to wear their uniforms, not to wear lanyards or scrubs in the city for fear that they'll be targeted. We are expecting another day of protests here in Melbourne. We'll have to wait and see what the next few hours hold.
Yeah, we've seen the last couple of days, Julia, as well, how the day usually starts. It starts quietly, huge police presence as it did yesterday, but then we see those large crowds gather, hundreds of arrests are being made. So is there a change in tactic today? Have police given anything away?
Well, we know that police are going to really deploy all of the tactics at their disposal. They're not taking any chances at this stage. They're taking a zero-tolerance approach to these protests now that it's dragging on for a fifth day. It does seem like on the protester side of things, though, it has been quite disorganised over the past day. We didn't see large-scale demonstrations yesterday, even though more than 90 people were arrested in Melbourne's CBD. So it really depends on whether those protesters are able to get that group together. There'd surely be a lot of, I guess, reservations given just how many officers are out on the ground here in Melbourne. We know that they're taking this incredibly seriously, stopping anyone that's walking around in the CBD. So it's going to have to be a large group if they're able to really put together a demonstration today.
Yeah, Julia, thanks so much. Well, these protesters aren't giving up easily. They're saying they're going to continue the protest for a number of days and really indefinitely until their demands are met. So it's quite a stalemate at the moment. We will be across it all for you here on Sky News, and Julia Bradley there on the ground for us.